So good morning all of you. We were doing different aspects of immunity and vaccination in the last class. So if you have any doubts in that, you can ask now here. We will be starting with different systems. We covered the digestive system last time, so we will be continuing from there. First try and solve this question. UPSC previous year's question. A simple question, if you remember from what we did last time, you should be able to solve this. The question says, in human body, liver has an important role in fat digestion. This is the assertion and there is this reason. We have less of assertion reason questions now, but earlier this was a very common trend. Nevertheless, we still get a lot of information from this particular question. Liver produces two important fat, it should have been important here, important fat digesting enzymes. You are to examine these two statements carefully and select the correct answer to these items using the codes given below. Right? So first statement, liver has an important role in fat digestion. This is absolutely correct. We spoke about this last time. And the second one, liver produces two important fat digesting enzymes. This is incorrect. We mentioned that liver helps in digestion of fat, but it does not contain any fat digesting enzymes. So this statement is incorrect. The reason is incorrect, the assertion is correct. So our answer will be C. A is true, but R is false. Okay, A is true, but R is false. Answer is C. C is the correct answer. Let's go on further. To our next system, which is the respiratory system. So we've spoken about digestive system, and I think you should remember that digestive system is for breaking down the nutrients. Now the nutrients are broken down in the body, we need them to produce energy. That whole process of production of energy, that is respiration. So if we talk about respiration, we can talk about it in two steps or two main aspects. One is the part where the gases are exchanged. I'm sure you have an idea that different gases, carbon dioxide and oxygen, they would be exchanged in the body. And that exchange is one part of respiration. The second part happens at the level of the cells. So, cellular respiration is the second part. Gaseous exchange and cellular respiration are the two things which are going to happen. What is the purpose of respiration? The purpose is to produce energy. production of energy, that is the main thing which we are trying to achieve in the process of respiration. Now let's first see what is cellular respiration. We have glucose, which is the main substrate which is going to be used. We discussed glucose and we said that this is the main thing which is responsible for energy production. We said that glucose is going to be responsible for production of energy. It is the main source of energy. That is how we discussed how this is a carbohydrate. So glucose के साथ we get oxygen, right? Oxygen you will get from air, and glucose in the presence of oxygen will be able to give us energy, and along with this we have carbon dioxide and water coming out, and of course the energy which we need. So glucose plus oxygen plus carbon is going to give us carbon dioxide, water and energy. Okay, this is the standard reaction which is going to be taking place in all the cells. All the cells are going to be producing their own energy, and each and every cell is going to do this reaction. Okay, every cell in the body is going to do this reaction. That is, it is going to get glucose which has already been derived from the digestive system. As food is being broken down, glucose has come out, and that glucose with the help of blood can reach each and every cell. As it reaches each and every cell will be able to use oxygen, which also is coming from blood, give us carbon dioxide, water, and in the process energy. Okay, this reaction or this process is called aerobic respiration. You're supposed to keep noting all this down. There's nothing particularly for me to dictate here, so please note it down. I guess we are having some kind of a sound issue, so we are looking into that. That should be resolved probably soon. So until then, please manage with this. Write this down, note this down. Sometimes what can happen is that this oxygen could be in an insufficient supply in the body. Okay, I'll give you the example of your body only. In your body, what can happen is that sometimes what will be the situation is that there is a possibility that you are doing more work than the amount of energy your body needs. Think about the fact that suppose you start running. You think of, okay, you're going to start running, and that running is going to be there after a very, very long time. So you have no idea of a physical activity. So because of that, your body is not equipped that you are going to be going into such strenuous activity. So it is, the body is supposed to be having an idea where as to how much oxygen you would need, and it is prepared at that level. But if you are putting more effort, then what happens is the condition in your body which is that there is insufficient oxygen. because of the overzealous activity which you are doing, what is happening is that we are facing an insufficient oxygen condition in the body. Now, what the body will do, the same glucose is there, but oxygen is now less. So you are running, your muscles are using oxygen, but this oxygen is less. So even at that time, the muscles will have to provide you with energy because you are running. Now, what happens without oxygen also, your body is very smart, where your body is very specially designed that it can still produce energy. It will produce something which is called lactic acid, and along with this lactic acid, it will produce energy. But in this process, no oxygen is being used. And this is a very special, very unique property of your muscle cells. So not all cells can do that, but the muscle cells can have this exceptional quality that even when glucose is not there, they are going to be producing energy. Of course, the energy which they produce is going to be a little less than what in the normal respiratory process what normally we would have. That would be slightly less, but nevertheless energy is produced and the process continues. When you run after a very long time, the example which we are taking, what also happens is that you develop something called muscle cramps. Cramps are, what are those? Point for write this, development of muscle cramps. Development of muscle cramps. Okay. So even in emergency situation, the energy flow is maintained. At this place, this is not about human beings, but still, because we are talking about cellular respiration, this cellular respiration process is common to most living organisms. Now, there are, however, some organisms who can do respiration as a rule without the glucose. Okay, without glucose, they can perform the task of respiration. So what happens in that case? We have glucose, no oxygen, and we have ethanol. Okay, these are not balanced equations. These are just for your reference so that you get an idea about how things are working. Ethanol and energy is produced. These organisms are called anaerobic organisms, or this kind of a system of respiration is called anaerobic respiration. The examples of organisms which do this are bacteria, and yeast. And the process is called fermentation. I'm sure you have heard the word fermentation. Fermentation is a very, very important process when it comes to a lot of food products, a lot of dairy, a lot of whenever alcohol is produced, every time the process is fermentation process. Okay, the process is the fermentation process. So, when the process, whenever we talk about fermentation, whenever you read about fermentation, you should know that we are talking about anaerobic respiration. This is the respiration process, or this is a process which is taking place without the use of oxygen for production of energy. This is the basic line which you should be aware of, that energy production without oxygen, there are some organisms which as a rule do not use oxygen. Their process is called fermentation. Ethanol is produced. Bacteria and yeast are the main components. Okay. So this is something you need to remember. Aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration means cellular respiration with the use of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration means respiration without the use of oxygen. Okay. Then one exception of muscles when it comes to the human beings. Okay. The muscles which are there, those muscles sometimes when you need excess energy than the amount of oxygen which you are getting, they can for a time period change to your anaerobic system. They produce lactic acid. Deposition of this lactic acid gives you muscle cramps, and this property is exclusive to the muscle cells. Now the next process which we are going to talk about is how this oxygen is actually coming inside the body. Okay, let's go to that. If there are still any sound issues or anything like that, please take it up with the technical team. There is nothing in particular which I can do. Yes, the board I can definitely change to black, that I'll do. What I have been told is that the voice issue has been resolved right now. So there isn't going to be a problem. I will change this background uh, to be brighter in the next slide. This I have already written, right? So I guess that should also be okay. In terms of the concept, let me just repeat this one again, right? We are talking about respiration. We said that respiration is for producing energy, production of energy, because the body needs energy in order to do the different functions which are there. So for that energy production, we have the process of respiration. It is in two parts, gaseous exchange and cellular respiration. Gaseous exchange we will see after this. Cellular respiration is the process which is taking place at the level of the cells. Okay. And for this gaseous exchange, what we have is we have two types of respirations basically, aerobic and anaerobic. Okay. Aerobic and anaerobic, two types of organisms are there. One organism is aerobic, which uses oxygen for its energy production. The second type is anaerobic organism, which does not use oxygen for energy production. When oxygen is used, you have glucose, oxygen, giving us carbon dioxide, water and energy. And then the anaerobic respiration, they produce energy without the use of oxygen. So they give ethanol, produce energy, and these organisms are bacteria, yeast. The process here is called fermentation. All other organisms, plants, animals, all of them, they will be following the aerobic respiratory process. Okay. Now, the other aspect is of this situation of insufficient oxygen. I can call this anaerobic respiration also. There is no problem with it. But why I have made a third category of this being called insufficient oxygen is because this is not the normal condition of the organism. Okay, this is not the normal condition. Normally, this is like if you're talking about human beings, in the normal scenario, they are going to be aerobic only. They use oxygen, right? But only in an exceptional situation where they are facing a challenge from oxygen, insufficient oxygen is there in their body, then they shift to anaerobic respiration. So you can call this reaction as muscle cells performing anaerobic respiration. There is nothing wrong with that. Okay. But however, what can happen is that this is happening. Why the muscle cells have to shift to anaerobic? Because there is insufficient oxygen. So just to mention that insufficient oxygen, we've given this as a heading. Organism is aerobic only. Once the muscles have regained their position, once you've stopped running, you've stopped that strenuous activity, the muscles will come back to their normal functioning and they will be doing aerobic respiration. At that time also where lactic acid production and anaerobic respiration is taking place, at that time also all the cells which can gather oxygen, they are still using oxygen. So oxygen wala process to chalta hi rahega. But along with that, the other muscle cells or some muscle cells will be doing this anaerobic respiration also. Okay, so I hope this is correct. Okay. Talking about the gaseous exchange, how the gases are reacting or how that transfer is taking place. Here we have the respiratory system. Okay, here we have the respiratory system, right? See, these slides were already prepared, so they are white. From tomorrow, I'll change the pattern of these slides also. You have to understand that we are in a condition of COVID restrictions. Delhi is closed in many aspects and the cases are increasing. So we are having alternate kind of setups and situations, and we're trying to make the most of delivering content to you, delivering these classes to you. You also have to understand that this is not the most ideal situations. Otherwise, you all would have been in class here, right? So let's all not get boggled and try to make the best of the situation which we are in. Okay. I hope you can cooperate with the situation. At my end, I will, uh, considering the kind of brightness and the light situation we have here, I will change these slides tomorrow for the class tomorrow. Today you will have to bear with it. You have these slides, will upload it on your portal. You can take a look at them if you feel there is any issue. And the other screen, the writing screen, that the colors to that I will change. Okay. All right. So, respiratory system, in this we are talking about exchange of gases. We are talking about how we are breathing in and breathing out, and how oxygen carbon dioxide relationship is going to take place. So we'll start with our nose. In the nose we have the nasal cavity. Okay, the nasal cavity is basically the place inside the nose. So air first goes in through the nose. Okay, air first goes in through the nose, and from there it comes to an area called pharynx. Now you can see there is this area where both the food pipe and the windpipe are passing. Okay, both the food pipe and the windpipe, they are passing through an area. Of course, there are two separate tubes, but that common area, common open space in between, that is called the pharynx. Okay. After the pharynx, you have a box called larynx. This is where your vocal cords are placed. Okay. This is where the vocal cords are placed. So, larynx or the voice box. Your speech is going to originate and it's going to come in from here. Okay. So after the larynx, the air which is coming in, it goes down through a windpipe which is called trachea. So trachea or windpipe. Okay. This goes down your neck and then is going to take the air to your lungs. Now you have two lungs. So this windpipe divides into two parts. This windpipe divides into two parts, two portions, and these two portions are called bronchi. Okay, so you have the main pipe, trachea, which divides into two parts called bronchi. Please keep noting this down. These are just basic small points. You do not need any kind of elaboration here. You just have to remember ki pehle trachea, then bronchi. That's it, basic idea. After the bronchi are divided, they have entered both the lungs. They will have to further divide to be able to reach the different parts of the lung. Okay, they'll have to divide further to reach different parts of the lungs, and with this division, they are called bronchioles. So trachea, bronchi, and then bronchioles. These bronchioles ultimately will end in air sacs called alveoli. So trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and alveoli. What is this alveoli? This is air sacs with high blood supply. The alveoli are the last parts of this respiratory tract. They are the ones which are going to have a lot of blood supply. Okay. Now, what is the significance of blood here? Let's see that. For blood, we have talked about one component in blood, which is called hemoglobin. I hope you remember. What are the nutrients we have discussed for hemoglobin? The nutrients which are helpful in formation of hemoglobin, we have discussed them. So can you recall and tell me what were those? This hemoglobin has a special property that it has a high affinity for oxygen. Hemoglobin is present in blood also, in particular in the red blood cells. Okay. And in those red blood cells, the hemoglobin which is there, it is supposed to attract oxygen. So oxygen ultimately will bind to the hemoglobin. Okay, oxygen will bind to the hemoglobin. So as alveoli are supposed to have very high amount of blood supply, so the moment air reaches here, what happens is that we can suppose the hemoglobin in the blood that will take up the oxygen. The hemoglobin, alveoli have a lot of blood supply. The hemoglobin will extract the oxygen from the air which is coming in alveoli, and then it can be attached to the oxygen and take it to different parts of the body. And we have studied that every part of the body, each and every cell, that is supposed to use that oxygen for production of energy. Okay, that's what happens. Simple process. Again, I will elaborate. You are breathing in air. Air is coming from your nose, passes down through the pharynx, then it goes through the larynx and your windpipe, the trachea. After that, it divides into two parts, the bronchi. Bronchi take it to both the parts of the lungs, and then in both these parts of the lungs, what will happen is that they will further divide into bronchioles to reach all the parts of the lung. After bronchioles, it ends in the last part, which is alveoli. Okay, it ends in the last part, which is alveoli, and these are air sacs which have a high blood supply. And this high blood supply means that it comes in contact with hemoglobin. Hemoglobin has a very high affinity for oxygen. So the moment hemoglobin finds out air, from the air, it sucks out oxygen, it gets attached to it, and then as blood goes through different parts of the body, it takes this oxygen to each and every part. ठीक है? This is the basic idea. As oxygen is utilized, we will have carbon dioxide being produced, which we saw in the reaction earlier, right? This oxygen, water, anything which has to be brought out, this will then dissolve in blood from the cells as the process is taking place. It dissolves in the blood and it comes back. Coming back wala process again the same. Alveoli, फिर bronchioles, bronchi, windpipe, and then it is exhaled. So we are inhaling oxygen and we are exhaling the carbon dioxide. That's the normal standard process. Okay, that's how respiration is taking place. Okay. See if you've understood this. Okay, so you've told me that iron and B12 are the two things which we know for hemoglobin. That's good. Okay, Nitya has said that cytokines come under innate immunity. Yes, that might be correct because there are inherent chemicals. So that point can be correct, right? I'm not sure if I've mentioned innate immunity or acquired immunity in that. I just explained you the process that these are kind of a natural response of the body when the infected cells produce them and uh, they are going to be assisting the other cells to get protection. Okay. Alveoli, if you want me to explain, तो alveoli कुछ नहीं है, air sacs, air bags of air they are. They are bags of air in which the respiratory system ends and they are supposed to have a very high supply of blood. ठीक है, high supply of blood, why? So that they can come in contact with the blood and they can exchange gases. Basically, gases का exchange यहाँ पे हो रहा है. The exchange of gases is what is taking place in alveoli. They have a lot of air, they have a lot of blood. And exchange इसी में होना है. From air to blood. Blood will then take it everywhere. And whatever blood is bringing back, it will bring back at this surface. That's what is happening here. ठीक है. Next system which we have to talk about is the excretory system. We had a diaphragm also in the last image. So basically, diaphragm is supposed to be the muscle which will help in this movement. This inspiration and expiration which we do, for that there is a muscle which is there below the lungs which will help in that movement. Okay, so that muscle is the diaphragm. It alters the pressure in the body's cavities so that the gases can move in and move out properly. Okay. Excretory system or excretion. This is a process which is for removal of wastes waste removal from the body. Okay, anything which is used, you have, taken food, you have then sent the nutrients to different parts of the body, they have been used and they have been used at different places. So after everything has been used, everything has been metabolized, everything is done, still there would be some things which would be extra, which would not be needed. So there would be some waste component, and what happens to that waste component is that needs to be removed. That removal is called excretion. Along with this, excretory process also is going to be regulating the amount of oxygen. How much, sorry, not oxygen, water. Oxygen to ho gaya, sorry. Regulating the amount of water. Now your body needs a specific amount of water and that level of water has to be maintained. Okay? It cannot really vary very extensively. We have to maintain that amount of water, and both these are jobs which are given to our main excretory organ, which is the kidney. The organ which will do both these jobs, that is removal of waste and regulating the amount of water, that is kidney. Okay. Now, how the kidney is actually going to be doing this job, how it's going to be working, is through a process called filtration. A process of filtration which is going to help the kidneys to do this function. Now, if you think of the word filtration, okay, the normal word filtration which is there, that would be such that you bring something inside, like we have filtration of water. You want to filter out water. So you put water into the filter. The filter keeps the impurities with itself and releases the water. That's the normal process. Filtration ऐसे ही होता है. आपने पानी डाला filter में, the impurities or whatever is not needed, that stays inside the filter and the clean water will go out. This is exactly what your kidney is going to be doing. Okay. The kidney is going to be doing this filtration. Let's just look at the kidney and see how it happens. So this is the kidney. Of course, it's not purple in color. This is just a diagrammatic representation. So blood is basically carrying everything. जो भी कुछ body में है, everything is being carried, is being moved with the help of blood. So blood will come here into the kidneys and here it will be filtered. Kidney का काम है filtration. So blood is going to be filtered. Whatever is not needed, whatever is extra, that the kidney will keep with itself. The rest of it is going to send out. Okay. The amount of water which was needed, the amount of good minerals, needed nutrients, needed salts which are there, they would be sent back. But whatever is not needed, that the kidney will keep with itself. All the excess amount of water, all the excess waste, it will keep with itself, and that is what is going to form your urine. It will be formed in the kidneys. It will go through the ureters, which are the tubes which connect the kidney to the urinary bladder, and the urinary bladder will ultimately change this to urine, and urine can then be removed from your body. Okay, so simple thing for excretion. Excretion may, there are going to be two things: removal of waste and regulating the amount of water. Okay, which is the main organ doing this? Kidney. How is it doing it? It is doing filtration. Blood comes into the kidney, kidney filters the blood, sends back the good blood, sends back the blood without the waste and the extra amount of water. Rest of it becomes the urine. If we look at urine and its composition, the main waste which is there, that is the nitrogenous waste. The body, the waste which it is trying to remove, mainly it is the nitrogenous waste, and in that also urea is the main nitrogenous waste of your body. It is 2.5% of the urine. Okay, so the major share of the nitrogenous waste which we give out, that is urea, that is 2.5%. For different organisms, it can be different, right? Like birds cannot waste a lot of water. They conserve water, so they give it in the form of uric acid, which is drier in composition. We give out urea, then the other wastes, they form 2.5%, and the rest of it is water. That is 95%. Okay, Shashank has asked, what is the difference between respiration and breathing? Okay, see, breathing तो simple process हो गया आपका, taking in air and taking out air. Okay, that is what is breathing, right? The idea of breathing is the only process which is taking in air and taking out air. जो gaseous exchange वाला हमने process किया था, that is what is breathing. देखो, if we just talk about this process, gaseous exchange, we can call this breathing. When we use the word respiration, we are talking about both these processes together. That is the difference. Okay. Now, Vinita has asked, how can inhaling and exhaling take place simultaneously, irrespective of having one particular system? Okay. So it might not exactly be simultaneously, right? It can be one at a time, right? But even if you think of it happening simultaneously, there is no problem. There is an air passage and it is not like a one-way street. Things can go in and out, right? It doesn't happen that way. We have muscles to do the different, the diaphragm which I spoke to you about. It will take once, it will expand, once it will contract, so that both the things happen. The pressure variation के साथ एक बार inhalation होगा और एक बार exhalation होगा. Okay. Let me tell you again about excretion also, then we'll go to the next one. See, don't try to go very deeply into things, right? You'll get confused if you start thinking about more aspects than needed. We are not having a lot of questions from this area in the last few years, right? So it is important for us to recognize that fact and only give the attention as much as is needed. Okay? If you keep thinking about facts like how is this happening, how is that happening, we can do that. But that's like, you can study the kidney for more than 1 year, right? There's a course for that. But you do not need to, right? So have that kind of idea कि ठीक है जितना चाहिए, at least the basics we are still trying to touch because it might be needed somewhere, right? Unless and until there is some specific research which is happening and some new Nobel Prize has come in to talk to you about the function of kidney, then that's where you need it. Otherwise, whatever we are talking about, this should be sufficient. I just want to give you a basic overview, a basic idea about how these different processes are happening. Okay, so excretion kuch nahi hai. This is the only thing which you need to know. Excretion का मतलब है body से waste निकालो, water regulate करो. Simple. Just these two things you need to know. That's it. Okay. This is not difficult. Knowing these two things, excretion means removal of waste and regulation of amount of water. Right? Who does this job? Kidney. How does kidney do this? It performs the filtration process. Normal filtration process, like you understand, the filtration of water. Dirty water goes inside. After filtration, clean water comes in. Here it is the blood. Blood which has everything, all the nutrients, all the water, everything. So blood with all the components comes to the kidney. Kidney filters out the blood, sends back the blood which is clean, in which the waste has been removed, excess water has been removed, and whatever it has collected, it will give out in the form of urine. Human urine, major component is urea, 2.5%, nitrogenous waste, then other wastes are 2.5%, and the rest of it is water. This is all that you need to know. Please don't get confused. If you are still struggling somewhere, ask the doubt, ask your question, right? But don't try to expand beyond this. Where is the position of kidney? Where it is like placed? Okay, how filtration is happening? Why filtration is happening? Don't go into that debate. You're just wasting your energy where it doesn't need it. Okay. The class 11th NCERT has detailed chapters on this. If you have, what should I say, intellectual curiosity, please go and engage there, but otherwise it's not needed. Okay. Have confidence on that. Look at a few questions of previous years. This will suffice. Okay. If you're appearing in some state services exam, you will need a lot of details on this because these kind of things are asked. They'll ask you about subcomponents also and a lot of other things. So that reading you'll have to do on your own, but UPSC does not ask into the details of this. Okay. When you are doing tests, when you are taking on different questions, there if you find any additional information, very good. Take that, add that to your notes. Okay. But without that, this should suffice. Now we're going to iske baad talk about nervous system. We'll take lesser details than this also. Just a very brief overview. Nervous system so we do not need. Mona Lisa has asked what is other waste and water. So there can be a lot of things, other things which in the body which you are not able to use. Like suppose you have taken up a medicine. Okay, you've taken up a medicine. Now you will not, that medicine is broken down in your body. Some of the things from that chemical, they will be needed. Some would not be needed. Now what will happen to the things which are not needed? They will have to be removed. They come under other waste. Yeah, you are processing different kinds of proteins in your body. So some of that waste becomes urea, some is still left, that comes under other waste. इसको break down क्यों करना है आप? There are a lot of things in the body which will go waste. It should not be troubling you. Trust me, there are other waste other than urea. Urea is not the only waste. There are many other wastes, right? Most of them are nitrogen based, right? But nevertheless, without going into that, just think of the fact anything else which the body cannot process, cannot use. Okay, like the example of a medicine which I have told you. Okay, so you cannot use that, so that will be waste. Water का भी क्या है? See, you can drink as much water as you want or as less water as you want. That is not really a problem for the body. The body has fixed कि अच्छा, this is the amount of water which we need. कि मुझे इतने लीटर पानी चाहिए. Right? If you drink less, it will start saving more. If you drink more, it will start removing more. Simple process. Body को अपना balance बनाना. Right? You can also see that kind of an alteration in the color of your urine. Depending on the amount of water you are drinking, you will find your urine to be concentrated or more diluted. And the color will also change from colorless to dark yellow brown, going into how much water are you consuming. So who decides that? How that is regulated? That's regulated by the kidneys. Normal composition, ये है standard composition, ये है percentage में. Majority of your urine is water. Because if only in water these things will be removed. All right. Okay, sometimes calcium in case of vitamin deficiency. That's actually a very good point. And we did that in a question also. It's really good, Ashmita. Yes, anything which the body has to be remove, it will be removed through the urine. Okay. Next is the nervous system. The system of nerves which are responsible for control and coordination. Now we are doing different functions, different things in the body. Different jobs are being done, different processes are being done. There needs to be a system which will coordinate all of this happening. Okay, we need a system which will coordinate this whole idea, coordinate this whole thing happening, and that would be our system of nerves. For this management, what we need is, we need a processing center and a delivery system. So, nervous system can be divided into central nervous system and then peripheral nervous system. CNS, central nervous system, and PNS is peripheral nervous system. This central nervous system or CNS, this is your processing center. Okay, central nervous system is the processing center. It is made up of your brain and spinal cord. It is made up of brain and spinal cord, right? And peripheral nervous system is made up of the nerves. Okay, you can see here the brain and spinal cord and the nerves which are connecting all the different parts of the body. Now, how is this supposed to work? Think of any basic idea like touching something. Okay, so this is suppose this is a hot object. Okay, and this hot object, this I am going to touch with my fingers. Now my fingers, they contain nerves. I touch this object, so the nerves in my fingers, they pick out this stimulus, they pick out this signal and they take it to my central nervous system. That means they take it to my brain and spinal cord, which are going to be processing this signal. Okay, the brain and spinal cord, they process the signal. So what do they process? Okay, I have touched something. This is the temperature which I will sense. Any symptom, temperature, texture, everything I will sense. So when the brain and spinal cord, when they are processing, the CNS is processing, it finds out that, acha, this is the hot object. So it accordingly plans a response. What will be its response? What will it be planning? Its response would be to remove the hand. So it has processed, it has understood what the signal was and it has prepared a response and then it sends it back. It sends back the response saying ki this is a hot object, please remove your hand. Okay. And that signal back is also coming from the nerve. So when that nerves bring the signal back to my fingers, I can remove my hand. So this is how the interaction between central nervous system and peripheral nervous system is taking place. We have two types of nerves depending on the direction in which they are taking signals. Sensory nerves take signals to the central nervous system. So this nerve which identified that I have touched something which is cold and has taken it to the central nervous system, that would be my sensory nerve. And we have a motor nerve which brings signals from the central nervous system. So that nerve which brought the signal back to my hand after the brain and spinal cord processed it, that would be the motor nerve. So motor nerves bring signals from the central nervous system. Sensory nerves take the signals from the different parts of the body, take them to the central nervous system. Okay, that is all that we will talk about. No technical names, nothing. Okay, आपको कहीं पे क्वेश्चन मिलेगा, आप वहां पे याद करना. UPSC now is not asking questions on these parts. There are aspects of parts of the brain also. Please don't feel deprived. I know शुरू में you people start feeling कि यार नहीं ऐसे कैसे, आपने बताया नहीं मुझे कि ब्रेन के कौन से पार्ट्स होते हैं, मैं डायग्राम बना के याद करने वाला था. You don't need to do that. Okay, we are preparing for an exam and our only objective is to clear that exam. That is it. Okay, and this is okay. There was a time 2005 and before that where they would ask questions on different parts of the brain, on their functions, but we have to keep updating ourselves from based on the trends which are being followed by UPSC. And it's your job at your end also to keep looking through previous year's questions to see what is the requirement of the exam, and so that you can put your dedicated energy in that place. Okay, so confidence रखना है कि at least ये आता हो. The problem which happens is that we are so engaged in the aspect कि ये भी पढ़ाना था, वो भी पढ़ाना था, मुझे ये नहीं बताया, I don't know how the cerebellum works, right? But at the end of the day, you can't even differentiate between central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Okay. We have to go by the demand of the exam. Please make sure at least whatever is here on the board, on your screens, at least you know that, right? Beyond that, oh, Shraddha Anusar, right? If you want, please, there is no limit to how much you can read or how much you can learn, but at least this you must know. That's the point. Okay. All right. So I'm going to take a break here. Next topic is your circulatory system, and that will take a little bit more time. So let's take a break and then we'll continue. So I've tried to change the background. See if this works a little better. Let me know. Otherwise कुछ और try करेंगे. So we're going to talk about the circulatory system. Sanjay has asked, what is the role of neurons in signals? See, if I talk about the neurons are the cells of the nervous system. The nervous system is made up of neurons, and these neurons are all connected with each other. And this connection of neurons is how the signals are transferring. Okay, the signals transfer also needs a passage, needs a platform. So that process or that signal is through the connection of these cells called neurons. Okay. The basic cell of the nervous system is the neuron. It is connected, and that interconnection is what helps in transmitting the signals. All right. Talking about the circulatory system, this is the system of transportation. How different things have to move from one part of the body to the other. That transmission is going to take place with the help of the circulatory system. And in this circulatory system, we have the heart, then we have blood vessels, and of course, for blood vessels, we have the blood. So heart, blood vessels and blood, this is the system which makes up the circulatory system, or this is how transportation of different things will take place in the body. Okay, first let's talk about the heart. Okay, and let's start with considering the shape of the heart, which you understand. You know this? This is how the heart looks in your imagination. So we'll talk about this, but in a little bit more technical front. The heart is supposed to have 4 chambers. It has 4 divisions, 4 chambers. So how these 4 areas of the heart are divided? The upper 2 chambers, they are called auricles or atrium. Means the same word. Auricle or atrium is for the 2 components, 2 chambers on top, and the chambers below are called ventricles. So you have 2 auricles and 2 ventricles. That's how your heart is divided. Okay. Now, how are we deciding the placement of the heart? Whenever any diagram of the human body is drawn anywhere, you have to imagine the person standing like this. So if this was my heart, this is how I would be standing. So this would become my right side and this would be the left side. ठीक है? तो यहाँ पे हम लिखेंगे right and left. So this portion, see, of course this is just to explain it to you. This is not descriptive to scale. Okay. So just to give you an idea, this is right auricle, this one then becomes left auricle, this is right ventricle and left ventricle. Okay, right and left I have told you, and the 2 chambers. The upper chambers, they are called auricles or atriums, and the lower chambers, they are called ventricles. Okay. Now, the heart and transmission of blood, the purpose of heart or the function of the heart is to make sure blood is reaching every part of the body. That's what is the main job of the heart. It is a pumping organ. Okay. And because this is the pumping organ, it has blood vessels to take the blood. Okay, it has blood vessels which will take the blood. So let's first look at the picture of the heart which we have, the actual picture. Of course, you know, if we start off with a picture like this, it becomes very confusing for us to understand, right? So in this picture, what we have is, this is a cut section of the heart. They have taken the heart. So heart is the shape of your fist. Okay, just whatever is the size of your fist, the same is the size of the heart. And in this picture, they have cut it from between and they have shown you what is inside. So let's see what happens. We have the right atrium, then below that the longer chamber, right ventricle. After this, the left ventricle, and you can't see it because of the blood vessels, but here you will have the left atrium. The upper chambers, atrium, lower ones, ventricles, right and left side of the heart. Okay. Now let's talk about the blood vessels here. The two main types of blood vessels are arteries and veins. Arteries and veins. Arteries are supposed to take blood from the heart to other parts of the body. So you can write this down for arteries. Take blood away from the heart. And veins, on the counter, take blood towards the arteries are blood vessels which take blood away from the heart, and veins take blood towards the heart. Then if we think about the veins, they are bluish green in color. Oh, sorry, I misspelled the veins. Okay, thank you, Kanishk. Okay, bluish green in color. You can see your veins, right? Normally. So the visible veins, they are bluish green in color. They are visible because they are superficial, and superficial means closer to the skin. They are superficial and they are thin walled. Whenever there is any kind of insertion which needs to be done into a blood vessel, that is done through the vein. You have to give an injection, you will give it in the vein. You have to draw out blood for some tests which you have to do. That also you will do with the help of a vein. Okay. So on the contrary, the artery is reddish in color. It is deep seated. We will never see the artery, and it's deep seated. And never seeing the artery means if we actually get to see the artery, that would mean something very dangerous. मतलब कुछ जबरदस्त खतरनाक चीज आपके साथ होगी है जो आर्टरी बाहर आ गई. It's way inside the body. It's deep seated and it is thick walled. And it is thick walled. Deep seated and thick walled. Superficial and thin walled veins. Now, how is this whole system working in the body? What is happening? For that, we'll have to go to this image. You're supposed to draw this exactly, copy it, put it in your notebooks. We'll understand the flow, how things are going. We are going to talk about the system which we've just now studied for the lungs. How blood circulation is associated with that process of oxygen which is coming from the lungs. So there are two terms which are used here. One is oxygenated. One is oxygenated. Oxygenated means when oxygen is present. Okay. See, telling me about the sound cannot really help. Okay. I know you don't know what else to do. So I'll tell you what else to do. Please type it in the academic, in the technical section of your queries. Because I am talking at my maximum voice. My mic, according to me, is switched on. There's nothing more I can do. Right? So me going into reading your comments is not going to solve your problem of sound or any other thing at the technical front which you are facing. तो सही जगह पे पूछोगे, सही जगह पे बताओगे, then something can be done. I am in no position to do anything. I'm talking at the top of my noise. Noise ही हो गया वैसे इतना loud तो, but yeah, I'm talking at the top of my voice, right? I am actually feeling a little haphazard with all the different things which are happening, the screen and the brightness. So I think maybe by the next class we'll all have settled down a bit. यहाँ तो वेन के स्पेलिंग गलत होते जा रहे हैं इस चक्कर में. वैसे तो I do that fumble of mispronunciation and wrong spellings. That's kind of my thing. But वेन के स्पेलिंग तो कम से कम गलत नहीं होने चाहिए थे. खैर, overwhelming day for me. And of course, I'm sure for you people also, because when you're trying to listen and things are not coming on point as you are expecting. But nevertheless, we have to do this. We have to study the best possible way in which we can. But yes, for any technical issues with visibility, with sound, with buffering, please don't write here in the response section. I cannot do anything about it. Please report this to the technical team, right? Chalo, double circulation in the heart. If you have drawn this, let's talk about it one by one. So the lungs are bringing us oxygen. Okay, this we have studied how in the lungs, in the alveoli, oxygen is reaching the blood. Okay, so when blood from the lungs is coming out, we are calling it the oxygenated blood. Okay, this is the oxygenated blood because it contains oxygen. Now this blood goes to the heart, and in the heart it goes to the left side of the heart. So oxygenated blood is reaching the heart, and in the heart also it is reaching the left side, and first it will go to the upper chamber. Whenever blood is coming into the heart, it is going to come into the upper chamber only, and the upper chamber here is left auricle. Now, blood coming towards the heart means it will be coming through a vein. Okay, so this vein we are going to call pulmonary vein. Okay, so lungs are giving us oxygenated blood which is reaching left auricle from the pulmonary vein. Okay, left auricle से blood goes to the chamber below it, that is the left ventricle, right? And this left ventricle now is going to pump the blood out and it is supposed to reach each and every part of the body. What will all the parts of the body do with the oxygen? Every part of your body will perform cellular respiration. Every part of your body is supposed to use that oxygen to produce energy. Okay, so oxygenated blood leaves the left ventricle and goes to all parts of the body. And this blood moving away from the heart is going to be through an artery. Artery's job is to take blood away from the heart. And the name of this artery is aorta. Aorta takes oxygenated blood from the left ventricle to all the parts of your body where the body will use it for production of energy. Okay, now the body has used energy, oxygen energy has been produced, so the blood no longer contains oxygen. Okay, as the blood does not contain oxygen, we call it deoxygenated blood. Okay, we call it deoxygenated blood, and this deoxygenated blood has to now go back to the heart. Okay, so deoxygenated blood going towards the heart, that means this is the job of a vein. Towards the heart, vein, away from the heart, artery. Okay, learn this. So towards the heart, this is vena cava, the vein which carries deoxygenated blood from all parts of the body. It is collected to this main blood vessel and it goes to the right side of the heart, which is right auricle. So first it will go to right auricle, and obviously because right auricle is the upper chamber, so first here, then to the right ventricle. Okay, and right ventricle say now blood will go to the lungs again for getting more oxygen. This blood is deoxygenated, and deoxygenated blood leaving the heart going to the lungs. So moving away from the heart, this is going to happen through an artery, and because it is going through the lungs, this one is going to be called pulmonary artery. Let's do this whole cycle one more time. We are starting with the lungs. Lungs are bringing us oxygen. Oxygen goes into the blood. Blood becomes oxygenated blood. Okay. This oxygenated blood from the lungs reaches the left side of the heart, the left auricle, and this is going to happen with the help of a pulmonary vein. Pulmonary vein brings oxygenated blood from the lungs to the left auricle, then to the left ventricle. Okay, and in the left ventricle, now this oxygenated blood will leave the heart and go to all parts of the body. This happens with the help of aorta or artery. Aorta, which is an artery, takes oxygenated blood from the left side of the heart, left ventricle, to all parts of the body. All the parts of the body use this blood. They perform aerobic respiration, energy is produced, and now the blood no longer contains oxygen. We call it deoxygenated blood. This deoxygenated blood from all parts of the body is collected in vena cava, which is a vein, and this vein brings blood to the right auricle. Right side of the heart, pehle auricle, then ventricle, and then finally this deoxygenated blood with the help of pulmonary artery will go back to the lung. We call this the double circulation in heart because this is a pattern in which blood flows through the heart 2 times. Once it goes through the left side, this is the oxygenated blood, and the second it goes through the right side, which is the deoxygenated blood. Of course, in reality, both these processes are taking place simultaneously, but just for a theoretical distinction for understanding the process, we are talking about them separately. This is the double circulation in the heart. We can also understand this circulation in 2 terms: pulmonary circulation, the part which involves the lungs, and systemic circulation, which involves the different systems of the body. Okay, just write this down, and if you have any questions, ask me here. Based on this, again, we can add one more point to our arteries and veins part. So, arteries carry oxygenated blood almost all the times, with the exception of pulmonary artery. Other than pulmonary arteries, all the arteries contain oxygenated blood. Okay, and veins carry deoxygenated blood except pulmonary vein. So, other than pulmonary vein, all veins carry deoxygenated blood. Other than pulmonary artery, all arteries carry oxygenated blood. Once more, let's do this. Arteries take blood away from the heart, veins take blood towards the heart. The cycle which is going on here, lungs are bringing in oxygen, adding this oxygen to the blood. This becomes oxygenated blood. From the lungs, blood goes to the right, so to the left auricle. Blood going towards the heart is through a vein. So this is the pulmonary vein, right? So left auricle say left ventricle. Left ventricle say now this oxygenated blood has to go to all the parts of the body. Okay, so this will go away from the heart. So this is by an aorta, which is the artery. So an artery will take blood from the left ventricle to all parts of the body. In all parts of the body, oxygen which is coming in from the blood, that is being utilized, and once this oxygen is utilized, blood is now deoxygenated. Deoxygenated blood from all parts of the body collected through a vein, then taken to the right auricle, right side of the heart, right auricle say right ventricle say back to the lungs. Cycle is complete. Okay, and right ventricle say when deoxygenated blood is going to the lungs, it is going through a pulmonary artery. The part of the circulation which involves lung, pulmonary circulation. इसमें कुछ नहीं है technically, you don't have to remember, this is just for your basic understanding of the term. Pulmonary का मतलब lung. Pulmonary circulation means this circulation which involves the lung. Blood coming and going into the lung. Blood coming and going into the different systems of the body, systemic circulation. Overall, we call this double circulation because heart is taking blood 2 times. One, oxygenated blood left side, deoxygenated blood right side. We're going to talk about blood after this. Blood has 2 parts. One is a liquid part and the second part is the cell. So the liquid part of blood is called blood plasma. You can write down for plasma. Plasma is the yellowish colored liquid. Write down. Plasma is the yellowish colored liquid part of the blood. It contains special proteins. It contains special proteins called plasma protein. It contains special proteins called plasma protein. Can you tell me what is the type of these proteins? What type of proteins are they? The plasma proteins. If you remember, we studied this earlier. These are of 3 types. Globular proteins. Yes, very good, Shana. So they are globular proteins. We studied 2 types of proteins. I'm glad you remember this. So we had globular and fibrous protein. These are the globular protein. Blood plasma proteins are globular proteins. First one, globulin, write down. Globulin They are used for the defense of the body. They are used for the defense of the body. Then write down albumins. Albumins. They are used for maintaining the pressure of blood. Then fibrinogen. They are involved in clotting of blood. They are involved in clotting of blood. Along with this, the second part of the blood is the cell. The second part is the cells. First type of cells are red blood cells or RBC. Now we have already done the function of RBCs. Can you tell me that? What is the role of RBCs? We have talked about it so many times. So tell me that, what is the role of red blood cells? Then we have white blood cells or WBCs and platelets. Write down for red blood cells. Red blood cells contain hemoglobin. Red blood cells contain hemoglobin and are responsible for carrying oxygen, as mentioned by all of you. So that's the main function of red blood cells. So if red blood cells are less or hemoglobin is less, if you remember, we've spoken about a condition called anemia. So anemia is characterized by weakness. Why is that happening is because if we are going to have less hemoglobin, that would mean less oxygen, and less oxygen means that the body is going to be having less energy because oxygen supply is not proper. That is why the significance of hemoglobin, and that is why the big concerns around anemia. Okay, so I hope you are able to make that correlation. Red blood cells have one more special property, that is they are enucleated. That is, they do not have a nucleus. Write this also. They are enucleated. That is, they are not having a nucleus. They are enucleated. That is, they do not have a nucleus. Now, why does this happen is because red blood cells They want to accommodate as much oxygen as much hemoglobin as they can. And in order to make space for more hemoglobin, the nucleus is lost from these cells. Okay. White blood cells. They are used for immunity. We have studied different types of white blood cells doing different jobs in immunity. We will talk a little bit more about them. Two further types. Okay, Kanishk is telling us biconcave. Yes, if you want, you can write this also. For red blood cells, their shape is biconcave. So when we look at the white blood cells, in their structure, what we can see, this is the cell, this is the nucleus. We see different colored granules, colored pigment granules, which are present. Okay. Some white blood cells have this, some do not have this. Okay, those which have these granules, pigment granules, we call them granulocytes. Those which do not have them, we call them agranulocytes. So we'll first talk about granulocytes. Write down granulocytes. They contain pigment granules. They contain pigment granules in their cytoplasm. They contain pigment granules in their cytoplasm. There are of three types. First, neutrophils. Neutrophils, if you remember, we studied them as cellular defenses. Please write this down. Neutrophils, cellular defenses in innate immunity. Cellular defenses in innate immunity. Next is eosinophils. Eosinophils, they are involved in allergic reaction. They are involved in allergic reactions. Then basophils. Basophils, they are involved in inflammation reaction. I hope you remember inflammation we studied when we spoke about hepatitis. So basophils involved in inflammation reaction. Then write down A granulocytes. A granulocytes. They do not contain granules. They do not contain granules in their cytoplasm. First one is monocytes. Monocytes. Cellular defenses in innate immunity. Cellular defenses in innate immunity. Then lymphocytes, we have already studied in a great detail. B cells and T cell. Lymphocytes for acquired immunity, you can write. Lymphocytes for acquired immunity. B cells. B cells give antibody mediated immune response. B cells give antibody mediated immune response, and T cells give cell mediated immune response. Cell mediated immune response and antibody mediated immune response. The last one, platelets, last of the blood cells, platelets, helps in the, or you can write, initiates the process of clotting of blood. Platelets initiate the process of clotting of blood. See, clotting of blood is a complex process which will need many things. So, we have platelets initiating the process. We will need proteins to actually form that meshwork, that clot, which will stop the bleeding. And that is going to be held by other agents like vitamin K, which we had studied earlier. Okay, so vitamin K, fibrinogen and platelets. Three things we have learned for clotting of blood. What I need to specifically mention here is that process. Once a blood vessel is injured, the first thing which becomes activated, which starts doing a job, that is the platelet. So platelet initiates the process of clotting of blood. The clot will be formed in the form of a protein. Fibrinogen is the starting protein. It is changed to other forms with the help of vitamin K to finally give us a blood clot. They don't have granules. It's written on the screen. T cells, cell mediated immune response. We have already studied T cells. Now we will talk about a very important and also a very interesting topic, which is blood groups. How grouping of bloods is happening. I'm sure you all know your blood group. Is there anybody who doesn't know their own blood group? Is For understanding the blood groups, we will need the concept of antigens, antibodies here. The most common categorizations of blood is the ABO type of blood group. Okay. ABO, okay, so there are a lot of you who do not know their blood groups. I think this is one important feature which you should have. Maybe not now, but once COVID settles down, this should be one thing which you must make an effort to know, that you know your blood group. वैसे most of the time your driver's license is supposed to have your blood group. So if you have forged that, or if you don't have a driver's license, then maybe that's a different story. But this is one important piece of information which you must have. It will also help you correlate your inheritance with your parents, which we will study eventually in the next class, most probably. The common, or under the ABO, we have A, B, O, and AB. 4 blood groups, A, B, O, and AB. The names of the blood group are coming from the antigens which are present on the surface of red blood cells. So the red blood cells on their surface contain some antigens, and what antigen is present, that will determine what will be your blood group. Okay. शायद O या B, तो ये शायद में तो बिल्कुल काम नहीं चलेगा. We're going to talk about transfusion and how important it is for you to have an exact idea of your blood group if transfusion has to go through. Otherwise, it is very, very dangerous. It can be lethal also. Okay. So, based on what antigen is present, we will name our blood group. So, there is an antigen we call A. So, if A antigen is present, blood group is A. There is another antigen called B. If B antigen is present, blood group is B. If both these antigens are present, we say it is AB blood group, and sometimes none of these two are there. So, in that case, blood group becomes O. So, O is like, think of O like 0. Okay, just like 0, think about O in that way. No antigen, I mean out of A and B. We are talking about 2 antigens here, A and B antigen. If A antigen is present, blood group A. If B is present, blood group B. If both are not present, blood group O. If both are present, a fourth kind, AB. Okay, let me show you the picture also. Look at this. These are the red blood cells, and on their surface some antigens are marked. So you can see the shape of A and B are different. If A antigen is present, blood group A. If B antigen is present, blood group B. If both are present, AB. If neither of these two are present, we have blood group O. Okay. Now, let's talk about antibodies. every blood group will be able to produce some antibodies. Some antigens are present, and given a particular situation, antibodies will be produced. Now, these antibodies, once they are produced, they are released into the plasma of blood. The plasma, which is the liquid part, that is where antibodies are present. Now, if you remember the basic idea of antigen antibody, if we have A and as an antigen, and if we have an antibody against A, that is anti-A, so they will be a reaction, there will be a reaction. Anti-A's job is to destroy A. Okay, an antibody is a specific reaction to the antigen. So if antibody A is present, the A antigen will be destroyed. So in nature, whatever antigen is present, that same antibody cannot be present in a particular blood group. So if the antigen is A, the antibody here will be anti-B. क्योंकि अगर anti-A होगा तो ये अपने ही blood को destroy कर देगा. It will destroy its own blood if this is the same antibody. So in the same way, B will have anti-A. Okay, we are only talking about two things as of now. Don't think about the fact कि अच्छा antibody सिर्फ यही है, COVID आएगा तो COVID का antibody नहीं होगा. It's not like that. Those antibodies are separate. Here we are just talking about blood group antigens and blood group antibodies. In particular A and B. That's our point of discussion here. Okay. So the blood group containing antigen A will not have antibody A. It will have antibody B. Blood group containing antigen B will have antibody A. When it has no antigen, now there is no problem. It can have both the antibody, anti-A and anti-B. And if both the antigens are present, now you cannot have any antibody. So none of these two, neither anti-A nor anti-B can be present. Okay. On the same lines, we have the positive negative of blood group. Like जैसे आप मुझे blood group बता रहे हो, like A negative, O positive, AB positive, right? That blood group also follows the similar rule of antigen antibody. The antigen in question there is called Rh antigen, and we call this type of blood group classification RH type. RH type में जैसे ABO type में we said we had 4 blood groups. RH type में we have 2, positive and negative. Like there we said that we had 2 antigens A and B. Here we have one antigen called the RH antigen. Okay. So if that RH antigen is present, we say blood group is positive, RH. If that antigen is not present, we say it is negative blood group. RH antigen being present, positive, RH antigen absent, negative. If RH antigen would be present, will there be a corresponding antibody against it? No. Because the corresponding antibody, that is RH anti-RH, that will be destroying this Rh. So antibody here is absent, but when there is no antigen, the antigen itself is absent, then we can have an antibody against this, which is anti-R. Same concept as ABO type, same thing will be applicable here. Same idea. Blood group, what is the antigen? And the antigen के corresponding antibody cannot be present. So a different antibody has to be present, or wherever the antigen is absent, there we can have the antibody. Okay. So you need to write this down. I'm sure you've already written. And we will see the application of this in the form of understanding how blood transfusion works. How blood transfusion works, that is going to be based on this, and that is actually the application of this. And this is very, very important for you to understand. A very common area of questions in not just in UPSC but in all kinds of exams. This is something which you have to understand. Okay, let's take a look at how the blood transfusion is working. First of all, tell me this thing. Why do we need blood transfusion? Blood transfusion means taking blood from one person, giving to another person. Why would we want to do it? That's the first question. So tell me first about that. Why would we want to give blood from one person to another? Why do we want to take blood or from one person and give it to another person? When we are giving blood, the person who is giving blood is called the donor. Okay. And the person who receives the blood is recipient. So we have the donor and recipient, a person who gives blood and the person who receives blood. So we can give blood in anemia cases, in accidental cases, when there is blood loss, when there is deficiency of blood. Yeah. Basic idea yahi hai that any time when there is loss or deficiency of blood in one person, the most common case of giving blood from one person to the other is accidental injuries, where there is sudden severe loss of blood. Okay. So you must have heard that in that case we do a blood matching. You first check कि अगर blood match हो रहा है या नहीं, then you give it, right? You first a matching is done. Now what is the basis of that matching? How is it determined which blood will match with what? So the person who gives blood, his blood goes into the body of somebody else. So once it comes into the body of somebody else, that blood as an outside entity will be recognized. And what is that thing which we have studied which stimulates the immune system or which is recognized from outside? That is the antigen. Antigen we studied is something which is going to stimulate the immune system. Now, of course, your body recognizes self and non-self ka distinction the body is able to do. So, in your own body, there will not be an immune response. Just because your your blood group is A positive, your blood cells have antigen A, it doesn't mean कि आपका ही immune system stimulate हो जाएगा. This body recognizes self from non-self. So, when it goes into somebody else's body, that's when this antigen will start doing its job. The job is to stimulate the immune system. So donor का antigen is important And once this antigen is recognized, the recipient will start producing antibody. Okay, it's the body of the recipient which produces the antibodies. Therefore, recipient, which antibody it can produce, that will determine the blood transfusion. Okay, and what antigen a particular blood group has and what antibody it produces, that is already fixed, that is already established, that we have already learned. So based on this, we can apply it here, we can put this here and solve for any situation. I'll give you examples also. Please listen to this very carefully. Imagine that your donor is blood group A. Blood group A is the donor and B is the recipient. A is the donor, B is the recipient. अब donor का मैंने लिखा है antigen. So for donor, look for what is the antigen. Blood group A, antigen A, right? Here it is given. Blood group B के लिए, recipient के लिए, we have to see antibody. This antigen has come into the body of B. Now B will produce antibody. Which antibody B can produce, that is fixed, already known to us, and this is antibody A. So antibody A has the capacity to destroy antigen A, तो ये transfusion हो जाएगा unsuccessful. Because they are complementary antigen antibody, they will react and the antigen will be destroyed. This phenomena we have already studied. Now let's do another, try another transaction. This time your donor is O, recipient remains the same. So donor is O blood group, antigen in O, none, no antigen. Antibody in B again remains the same, anti-A, but the antibody has nothing to react with. So कोई भी antibody आ जाए, O has no antigen, so there will be no problem. This transfusion will be successful. Let's take one more example. Here we change the recipient to AB. Donor is A. So donor का antigen A, recipient में antibody, if we check, no antibody is there. So even if we have an antigen A, there is nothing for it to react with. And because of that, this transfusion will also go through. Okay. On the same lines, you can apply the RH factor also. Same process, same rules for antigen and antibody. Now let's solve one question. If you solve that question, you will understand how much this concept is clear to you. It's very, very important. Solve this question and see how much you have understood. This is UPSC previous year's question on the very, very important concept of blood group. Please solve the question and send me your responses. Okay, the answers which I am getting are A, B, C also is there. Okay. A man whose blood group is not known meets with a serious accident. So this man, there's a man who is met with an accident and he needs blood transfusion immediately. Which one of the blood groups mentioned below and readily available in the hospital will be safe for transfusion? So we have a recipient whose blood group is unknown. Okay. And for recipient, we had to consider the antibodies. So that means कौन सा antibody है that is unknown to us. Okay. Antibody is unknown to us in the recipient. Recipient is unknown. So they have asked us which donor should we use so that this blood transfusion will be safe. तो recipient पता नहीं है, antibody पता नहीं है, हमको donor ढूंढना. So donor के लिए we are considering antigen. If you just learn this rule, donor, antigen, recipient, antibody, you will be able to solve all the questions 100% and all of those questions would be correct. Okay. Now, we have to look for a donor which does not have any antigen. In order to make sure that there is no adverse reaction with the antibodies, we will have to make sure that there are no antigens. The only way to make sure कि reaction ना हो is to ensure that there are no antigens. Now, which blood group does not have any antigen? This we will see here. In ABO type, the blood group which does not have any antigen, that is blood group O. And between RH, positive and negative, which blood group does not have any antigen? That is negative. Okay, we have to, when we are considering it, we have to consider both of them because that's how the options are given to you. So O negative in that sense will be the blood group which would be safe for transfusion because it has no antigens and any antibody would be present, there would be no reaction. So the answer is O negative. By this logic, O negative blood group becomes the universal donor. It becomes the universal donor. That means it can give blood to anybody. It is a universal donor. It is going to give blood to any other person. Right? If I have to ask you which is the universal recipient, can you tell me that now? If I ask you which is the universal recipient, which blood group? Recipient universal वो होगा which will not have any antibody. Like we said, donor is going to be universal without an antigen. Recipient without an antibody will be the universal recipient. ठीक है. Now इसमें देखते हैं ABO में which blood group does not have an antibody, that is AB. Yes, AB positive as you are telling me. Very good. That is correct. You've got the concept. RH में देखो which blood group out of this positive or negative किस में antibody नहीं है, that is positive. So O negative is your universal donor and AB positive in that sense becomes the universal recipient. Right? I hope you've understood this concept. I'll take on some of the queries which are there on my screen. Please ask your queries in the doubt section so that they are not missed. Mona Lisa has asked, can you please show the position of right auricle? It is very confusing to me. तो confusing वाला diagram आप देख ही क्यों रहे हो? There was a reason why I showed you the heart which you understand. And the reason was because it is confusing. This is the simple diagram. Just remember and learn this. There's nothing confusing about this. Heart, we're dividing it into 4 parts. The upper parts, auricles, the lower parts, ventricle. As simple as this. It cannot be more simplified than this. I told you this is how we determine left and right. Okay. So, this would be, this is my heart, I am standing here, this is the right side, this is the left side. So, uske hisab se right, left, right, left. ऊपर वाला auricle, नीचे वाला ventricle. There's no need to go and understand the 3-dimensional diagram which is there. It's okay. I just showed you for a little bit reference, but otherwise, if you're getting confused, this is good enough. Next, we have how lung cells get oxygen for its function because aorta artery is not carrying oxygenated blood to the lungs. See, lungs also have their own set of vessels with which they will get blood. Okay, not exactly in that channel, but yes, lungs and the cells of the lungs, definitely they are all parts of the body, they are going to get the blood, right? The heart also on its own, it has its own system. Heart is pumping blood, right? But heart also needs blood. Heart के cell को भी energy चाहिए. So for that, there is a system which will supply to the heart, right? Don't worry. सबको blood मिल रहा है body में. Okay. Why antigens are considered for determining blood group? That is the identifying. That's a study which we did when we studied interactions of different blood types, and when it was further studied why this interaction or reaction of blood is taking place, we identified that there are some special antigens on the surface of the blood. And once we studied different types of antigens on different types of blood cells of different people, we named them, categorized them, and that's how blood group came into being. Okay, it's not something we are considering, it's something which is happening. When you mix 2 types of blood, this is the reaction which takes place. Okay. Do different blood groups affect the body's immunity towards diseases? No. On most times, that's not the case. Okay. The different diseases as such, these are not the antibodies which will be determining the diseases. These are the antibodies which are only supposed to be determining the blood group. Okay. This is only for blood groups, nothing to do with the immunity process. How is an antibody created in any blood group? Antibodies are naturally present, already there, right? So, okay, sorry, let me read this again. How is an antibody created in any blood group? Since that particular antigen cannot be present there. तो जो एंटीजन, let me take you to that picture of blood grouping. Not exactly following the question, so let's take a look at this. तो ये एंटीजन्स हैं and corresponding which antibody is possibly produced, that is there. Now your question is कि antibody जब यहाँ पे, and I think what I can understand is कि जब B एंटीजन है ही नहीं तो B एंटीबॉडी क्यों कैसे प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है? Okay, I think this is what you are trying to ask me. So see, this is the potential of production of antibodies. Ultimately, antibody production will take place only at the time when a foreign blood cell that has come up, okay, and not otherwise. It's not like always that the antibodies would be present. This antibody production basically is the capacity of the body. It can produce, it will produce those antibodies once foreign blood is coming. Okay, we've just, this mention is there because to explain what is the potential, and the potential is this ki anti-A it will never be able to produce because that's its own. Okay, I hope I've been able to follow and address your query. Sanjeev has asked, is it always that a case that O negative would be given to any person? Yes. Saying or calling it the universal donor means that it can be given to any person. Okay, that's how the situation is. Whereas in reality, we do try that we give the same blood group, right? Like A positive ko we try to give A positive blood only. Okay. However, in the case of emergency, in any other situation, we can give O negative to any. Okay. What is the HH type of blood group, also called Bombay blood group? Okay. So we have another type of antigen called the antigen H. Now we have studied A and B antigen. A and B की जगह एक antigen H भी होता. What is this antigen H? This is the precursor to A, B, O and AB blood group. All these four blood groups, A, B, O and AB, they have another antigen along with the A, B or both or none with which they'll have. एक और antigen है which is present in all these four blood groups. That antigen is called antigen H. Okay, so this is the third antigen. AB antigen, two antigens we've talked about. This is another antigen which is present in all blood groups, even in O. And this is antigen H. Okay, this antigen H is missing in some people. That is the rare categorization which we are going to talk about. That antigen H is missing in some people, and when it is missing, we have a special type of blood group which is called Bombay blood group. Okay, the special type of blood group called Bombay blood group, and this blood group people the antigen H is absent. Okay, not just antigen H, antigen A, antigen B, all are absent in this. And this is a rare blood group. There are many other such blood groups also which are found in very smaller populations, rarer blood groups. Bombay blood group is one of them. Why it is called Bombay blood group is because of the fact that it was first determined, first identified in Bombay. Okay. So, because it has all these antigens missing, if you talk about antibodies, it will have all the antibodies. It will have anti-A, it will have anti-B, and it will have anti-H. And because of this, it cannot take blood from any of them. Bombay blood group people can take blood only from other people of the Bombay blood group. So that is why this is important. That is why sometimes it is being discussed in the news. And there are a lot of movies also, if you have seen. So we had Andhadhun is one movie which I have seen. You might have seen some others also. उसमें क्या है कि they have to find out another person of the Bombay blood group to get the organ transplant, because otherwise blood matching is not there. Why blood matching is not there? Because of the fact that antigen H is present in all the blood groups, but it is missing in the Bombay blood group. Okay, and it has antibodies against all of these, so it cannot be a recipient to any blood group type but its own. Okay. Why antigen O and antibody O are not formed in the blood? प्राची एंटीजन O कोई एंटीजन है ही नहीं. O सिंबॉलिकली हमने यूज किया है जीरो के लिए और मिसिंग सिचुएशन के लिए, राइट? We are talking about two antigens basically. We're talking about two antigens, antigen A and B. We are just talking about two antigens. Okay, दो ही antigen होते हैं blood group determine करने के लिए. And out of these two, when they are both missing, we say it is O. O is zero. O is not an antigen. Right? I hope this is clear. Let's talk a little bit about okay. Blood group O are more prone to diseases as they do not have antibodies. No. ये disease वाला antibody है ही नहीं. That disease antibodies that is normally there in the body like everybody else's system. This has nothing to do with that. Okay. This is only the antibody for a particular antigen A or B. Antibody virus के लिए बनेगा, antibody bacteria के लिए बनेगा. ठीक है ना? It does not interfere with your immunity. Okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit about endocrine system. But before we start, I want to again ask you the systems which we have done here. Any doubts, any queries from that, please let me know. Right? I think a lot of you are being confused about antibody, immune system wali or antibody which is here in this case. So I again want to exemplify they are different. Antibody is a reaction to a particular antigen, and if that agent is a virus, antibody body will produce. If that agent is a particular bacteria, antibody the body will produce. In this case, please don't confuse it with that. This is an antibody for a blood cell. This is an antibody which the blood will produce against blood group antigen. सिर्फ इन दो एंटीजेंस या इन तीन एंटीजेंस के लिए एंटीबॉडी प्रोडक्शन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट. दिस हैज नथिंग टू डू विद द इम्यून सिस्टम और द एंटीबॉडीज देयर. ये ब्लड सेल्स के अगेंस्ट जो एंटीबॉडी प्रोड्यूस होती हैं, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट. वायरस, बैक्टीरिया, मलेरियल पैरासाइट, snake venom, whatever other things will come into your body, the body will produce antibodies. इसमें the distinction is because the body is recognizing self and non-self. तो वो अपने against नहीं बनाना चाहता antibody. A is the antigen which is present on the red blood cells. So against that antibody production, the body does not want to do. That is the idea. Okay. Any other questions which you have? Please ask. Take a moment. Let's make sure all your doubts are addressed from all these sections here, right? Then we'll go ahead. Okay, no more queries? Okay, so somebody has asked, I've been told about plasma therapy. Plasma therapy, we studied about blood plasma. Okay, plasma is the liquid part of the blood. There is no concept here which can be confused with that plasma, but just normal process जो हमने disease में पढ़ा था, that there is an antigen and corresponding to that antibodies are produced. This I told you last time also. तो जब antibody, there is a person who has COVID, okay, in his body antibodies against COVID are being produced, right? So when antibodies against COVID are being produced, we can take his blood and from the blood we will take the plasma part, the liquid part. Okay, we'll take that and we will give it, we'll take out the antibodies, सब antibodies नहीं, COVID वाली antibodies जो हमको चाहिए, we'll take those antibodies out and give it to the other person whose body is not producing any other types of, the COVID antibodies produced in their body is not sufficient. So we can take it and from the liquid part we will extract the antibodies and क्योंकि antibodies हमेशा plasma में produce होती है, we can give it to the other person, we can send this blood back to the donor. ये idea है plasma therapy. ठीक है. blood groups, I saw a lot of uproar has happened in the response panel. तो एक बार blood group ही सुन लो और फिर blood groups are determined by presence of red blood cells on the surface of presence of antigens on the surface of red blood cells. Now you are saying कि एंटीजन कैसे हो गया बॉडी के अंदर. वी सेड एंटीजन इज समथिंग विच इज ट्रिगरिंग एन इम्यून रिस्पॉन्स, राइट. सो आपकी बॉडी में ये है एंटीजन, बट इट इज रिकॉग्नाइज्ड बाय योर बॉडी. बॉडी के पास एक कॉन्सेप्ट होता है कि इट कैन डिटरमिन और इट कैन डिस्टिंग्विश सेल्फ फ्रॉम नॉन सेल्फ. So this is an antigen, but not for your body. You are self, not for your own self. But when this blood will go into somebody else's body, that is the time where it will trigger the immune response, not in your own body. ये जो antibody production भी हमने बोला है, antibody production will also take place when blood is going into somebody else's body. So this concept will come into play only during blood transfusion process. Okay, not otherwise. However, when we are talking about which antibodies can potentially be produced, in that case, we have to say that the same antibody cannot be produced. Antigen को तो self, non-self determine करते हैं, but once an antibody is produced, antibody will destroy everything. ठीक है. So this blood group which has antigen A, it cannot have antibody A, because whenever, in whichever situation it is produced, it will destroy its own blood. Okay. So A can produce anti-B, B can produce anti-A, AB में both the antigens are there, so no production of antibodies here. O, no antigen, so both the antibodies can be produced. Okay, यही हमने phenomena use किया था understand करने के लिए the question. अब question में क्या है? Question says that we have a recipient whose blood group we do not know. Okay, we do not know the blood group of the recipient. Now we have to find a donor. So basic rule ये याद रखना है. If you remember that, you will be able to solve all questions, whatever they might ask you. Recipient का antibody कौन सा है? And donors antigen. This is what you need to know. Okay, this is what you need to remember. So recipient we do not know in this case. So donor we will find out, but we will find out a donor without an antigen. If there is no antigen, there is no chance of a reaction. Whatever antibody the person is able to produce, no problem. तो बिना एंटीजन वाला डोनर होगा हमारा O negative. O in the ABO type and RH negative, which does not have the RH antigen. This is the concept, right? Now about the Bombay blood group which we have discussed. तो A और B के साथ साथ कहाँ गया? We have another antigen called H, which is an antigen which is present in all these four blood groups A, B, O and AB. So some of you have asked that Bombay blood group people can take O negative or not. They cannot take O negative. ये एक exceptional group है for a very long small number of people. That is why ये universal की definition से बाहर है. But they cannot take blood from anybody because in O blood group there is antigen H. Okay, and if O is their donor and they have antigen H, तो बॉम्बे ब्लड ग्रुप वालों में तो एंटीबॉडी H है ही. The moment O blood group will go inside their body, they will react with that antigen H and the person will have an unsuccessful transfusion, which can also lead to death of the person because all the blood will start clotting. Okay. Hari has asked, is there a role of RH factor in Bombay blood group? RH वाला जो है process वो remains the same. ठीक है, this is only under OBO type, right? RH goes normally, right? Okay. Function of antigen A and B is to give a distinctive pattern to the blood group. Identifying points of the blood group. Identifying point of the blood cell. Okay. Different animals can have different types of blood groups. Yes, different animals can have different types of blood groups. There are many other types of blood groups also. Human beings also have more than this type of blood group also, golden blood group and many other things which are rare, which are there in smaller population. Okay, इससे ज़्यादा हमें जाना नहीं है, right? Just remember the basic idea of transfusion and RH and the ABO blood type. ठीक है? We'll talk a little bit in the introductory sense about the different glands. Then tomorrow we will start with the endocrine gland and different parts of endocrine gland and its different functions. Okay. When we talk about glands, I'm talking about the different systems or organs in the body which are doing some different secretions. Okay. Some secretions in the body, some production, some things being produced. That is what is the job of a gland. There are two types of glands which we are going to consider here. First is the exocrine gland and next we have the endocrine gland. ठीक है? अब difference क्या है? Think of the liver. Okay. So you had the liver here. लिवर से एक ट्यूब के थ्रू अल्टीमेटली स्मॉल इंटेस्टाइन में द बाइल विल गो. Bile goes from the liver to the small intestine with the help of a duct or you can say tube, right? So here also you can see chemicals are produced in the gland and then these chemicals will be released. There would be a tube-like pattern. This is the normal process in which glands work. It is called the exocrine gland. Along with this, there is another possibility of a gland which does not have these ducts. These glands are called ductless glands. Now, if they do not have ducts or if they do not have tubes, then how are they giving their secretion? They are surrounded by a support of blood supply and they give their secretions, whatever they produce, they give it directly into the blood. Okay, the secretions are released directly into the blood and these are called hormones. Hormones are secretions which go directly into the blood because these glands, they do not have duct. Okay, so this exocrine, this I have only explained just to give you a contrast, right? We are not going to go into this. We are interested in the endocrine system. What is the role of these hormones? Their role are to give different to different parts of the body, help in the coordination of different parts of the body. That's what their job is. Okay, let's just write this down. Endocrine system, please write down the endocrine system. It is meant for internal communication. It is meant for internal communication and regulation of the human body. It is meant for internal communication and regulation of the human body. Hormones are secretions of endocrine glands which don't have ducts and secrete directly to the blood, to be transported to distantly located organs. To be transported to distantly located organ. Okay. So I have one more query. If we have blood group O to any A, B blood group, the antibody A and B already present will not destroy the antigen A and B in the recipient of the blood. This is the point which I want to tell you कि सिर्फ donor का antigen is important and not the donor's antibody. Yeah, I think that's what you are trying to say. The antibody A and B are already present, but that antibody is not something which is going to be recognized from the foreign body. The foreign body into which the recipient's body into which blood is going, that will recognize only the antigen. वही definition है. What is that thing which can be recognized by the immune system? It is the antigen, not the antibody. As such, because the antibody production mainly is happening in the body of the recipient. It is at that time as a reaction antibody production is taking place, not in the blood which is coming. It's a very small quantity of blood and the body of the recipient is only supposed to be giving that reaction of antibody. That's how it is valid. That's how it works. Okay. Let's talk about some chapters which we can do for additional reading. So in your NCRTs, we can have class 7, chapter 10, then 11, then in class 10th, we have chapter number 6, which you can go through. This is on digestion and respiration. In the next class, we will start with endocrine system, and then we will go to genetics. One more question which I have is, if a person is having AB blood group, then how it will be able to fight disease as they are not forming antibodies? Again, same cheese hai. We have answered this many times now. ये antibodies disease fighting antibodies नहीं है. These are antibodies against the antigens present on the surface of red blood cells, which are helped for their recognition. It has nothing to do with the disease fighting antibodies. Disease fighting antibodies अपने हिसाब से whatever antigen will come, they will keep form. Okay. All right. So I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you and have a nice day. Thank you, Sanjana and Sangeeta.